Okay, everybody. Hopefully you're hearing me, and this is all working exactly as we planned it to be, as we're using a new computer today. So, um, for those of you that have been asleep for the last 6 months, I'm Gordy, and tonight I'm joined by four of our Master Model Railroaders, and they're going to take your questions. So, during the course of this evening or this afternoon, wherever you are in the world, the morning if you're in Australia and New Zealand, pop your questions into the live stream chat. So whether that's you joining us on YouTube or you joining us on Facebook, pop your questions in, and I'll put them to the gentlemen that are with me tonight. I'm gonna let them introduce themselves first, and then we'll go into a couple of the questions that were put to us earlier on. Before this event kicked off, but we definitely need some questions coming in from the audience. So we're looking for any question that you want. Bank account details and stuff like that is probably off, not what we're looking for. But model railroading related questions are more than acceptable. Questions about the achievement program, particular questions, maybe something that you're currently working on, or whatever, if that's a model railroading project or if it's something you're doing for the achievement program, then pop the questions into the chat. We've got some esteemed company here tonight who can definitely give you some good advice and answer those questions for you. So, that all having been said, I think that's introductions over. I am going to let the guys introduce themselves, and we'll kick off with Bruce. So, over to you, Bruce.
Thank you, Gordy. Really good to be with everybody here. A little bit about myself. I joined the NMRA right around the turn of the century, or the turn of the millennium, whatever. Anyhow, about 2000. I had started a business called Litchfield Station, which was DCC retailer, and I ran that for about 9 years, and I sold it about a little over 10 years ago. Then I worked for Model Railroad Hobbyist doing DCC columns for a while. And in 2011, I said that I was going to work on my Master Model Railroader at a PSR convention in Flagstaff, Arizona. I'm in the Phoenix, Arizona area, by the way. And so one of the fellows said, "Well, I'll see you in the contest room." And I said, "No, I don't think so. And I don't view model railroading as a competitive sport. I've judged a lot, but I have never entered a contest. And I got my model railroader or my master model railroader without being without ever entering a contest. And I got number 574 in 2016. And since 2018, I have been the AP manager for the Arizona division of the PSR. So with that, John, you're up next, I guess.
Hi, everyone. Glad to be here. Thanks for joining. My name's John Faraka. I live in Shirley, New York, which is on Long Island, and I'm Master Model Railroader number 643. Got that about a year ago, last July. I model HO scale, and I have a single deck freelance layout called the Stone Canyon Railroad. I consider it to be 100% finished. I've been operating this layout for about 7 years now with about 80 op sessions under my belt. The certificates I have are scenery, electrical, civil, structures, cars, author, and dispatcher. I started the journey in 2012. I belong to the Sunrise Trail Division here in New York. I'm the model contest chair for the division. And I was approached by one of the board members who asked me if I would like to come to one of the meets. And when I did, I met the AP chair, and they kind of talked to me about the achievement program, which I looked into, and it looked like I could probably get a few certificates out of it. And for me, it's been a very enjoyable journey. I learned a lot. It's pushed me into areas that I hadn't been in before, such as scratch building, and just a very enjoyable thing for me, and met a lot of great people, and so that's my story.
Okay, my name's Chuck Lind. I'm a master model railroader. I'm number 310. I've got all 11 certificates, so I'm an overachiever in that area, I guess. I've joined the NMRA in the 1970s. I model narrow gauge and standard gauge in O scale, and my interest is in Pacific Coast logging, normally the California Sierras Mountains area. And presently, I am president of the LSR Lone Star region. Thank you much, Pete.
Hi, I'm Pete Leach. I live outside of Houston, Texas. I'm MMR number 649, so I'm kind of a newbie. I achieved that last December. It was a nice Christmas present. Thank you, Chuck. I'm also late to joining the NMRA. I joined the NMRA in 2016. So I basically, when I got into it, I started learning there's a lot more than just sitting in my old basement or my hobby room modeling. My certificates are cars, author, prototype, structures, scenery, civil, and electrical. I'm serve on the board at the Lone Star region as a director at large, and I'm a nomination chair as of this past, was it February or March or something like that, Chuck? I'm modeling the main 2-foot Wisconsin, Waterville, and Farmington in ON30 and a 10-foot by 12-foot bedroom down here in Houston. And one of the things I'm most proud of is that almost every one of my merit awards was based on something that I was building for my layout. As I joke around, I'm a modeler with a railroad. So I love modeling. So back to you, Gordy.
All right, that's great. Thanks, guys. So we're getting some good questions in on the chat. So thanks, guys. Keep those coming. Some great introductions, some really great modeling people in the room with us tonight. So question 1, we'll come to the questions in the chat in a second, but the question that came in before the event was from Jeff Burns in Australia. And Jeff asked, he's wondering if a model can be assessed. I'm going to not use the word judged. Okay, we are not going to use the word judged tonight. We're going to use the word assessed. If can a model be assessed for more than one category, i.e., cars and prototype? Could the merit award count for both? Bruce, we'll go to Bruce first.
Prototype is, I think, the most misunderstood certificate of them all. Chuck, you can probably help us with this. I don't think any of the rest of us have it, but everything that you do for it can go multiple places. If you need some structures, you need some rolling stock, all of this, and that all counts for the other certificate. And it's not a photo match type of certificate. Now, there was an article in the May 2019 NMRA magazine where a guy did a really good photo match for his certificate. But the idea is to use photographs to justify the scene that you create. And it's a great place to start because everything you do goes both directions, as was indicated. Chuck, you might want to add to that.
Yeah. It is also one of the few where you do have to send the photographs of the model into the achievement program. Most of them don't go past your regional people. For me, when I modeled it, I modeled the West Side River Bridge and pretty well followed it as exactly per the photo and tried to model it that way. But I know it's one of the most misunderstood categories, I think, of all of them that we got, because you can do something in prototype and you can also have it in another category that can be.
Thanks, Chuck. We're going to go to Pete.
So that was actually the second AP certificate I got. I didn't know it was supposed to be as hard or as vague as it is. I happened to be modeling a town, and that town wound up having 3 structures that were later merited, and the scene was something was the reason I was building my railroad. I was trying to build a town based on what all the photos from 1925 Maine was. So that's, it is kind of misunderstood. Is it how much what's the biggest thing? How big does it have to be? Mine was a 12-foot long town at no scale, but how long does it have to be? I don't know.
Oh, that's cool. That's great. Okay, guys. So the question from the second question from Jeff, and then we'll go to the questions in the chat. Second question from Jeff was, in the author certificate, do online railroad blogs qualify? And if so, does he need to have a printed copy of all the posts to be submitted with his SOQ? We'll go to Bruce.
That was the second certificate I got, and I was running Litchfield Station at the time, and I had page after page after page of instructions and various things on there that I submitted, as well as the write-ups for clinics that I'd done, and that's how I got it. I think I submitted like 182 points worth or something. There was a stack of stuff, but basically, it has for it to count. It has to be accessible to the general public. So if it's accessible to the general public, if you have a link to it, and it's on the web, and you have a link to it, it's there.
Absolutely, and I think that the one thing I would say, because I'm doing quite a lot of my paperwork at the moment, is we're submitting all of our paperwork electronically nowadays. Especially if you're not in the United States and you're having to submit it to go over to the US for final sign off. Just current climate, posting things isn't acceptable. So there's not an issue as far as I can see if you're sending electronic documentation, Jeff, to just put links into the documentation, put all the links in a document with all your other evidence, and send it all across as supporting evidence with your SOQ. So that shouldn't be a problem. So, okay, cool. So we've got quite a few questions coming in the chat, and Jeff has just commented and said, "Thank you, gentlemen. That answers were very good. Answered his question very well." Okay, cool. So on the chat, first question from the chat is, what's the most important thing each of you learned during your journey to MMR? We'll go to John first. We're going to go to John, then we'll go to Chuck.
The most important thing, that's a good question. I mean, for me, I'll answer it this way. The achievement program took me to areas that I never thought I would go to, such as scratch building. And, it really taught me the importance of getting it right. I'm kind of a stickler for, getting the things that I build as correct as I can prototypically and both in scale. So I guess that for me, that's the answer to that question.
One of the biggest areas that I think in the achievement program is working together with others. I've learned more in this hobby from other people. Most people in this hobby are more than willing to share their experiences, their help, anything like that. I've got several people when I get stumped, I make a phone call and somebody's up here. And that's part of what I got out of the achievement program. I earned a good group of people that I have as a nucleus that I can, when I got a problem I can't figure out, I call them. And I think that's the biggest part you're going to get out of working with the achievement. I've always been a scratch builder, so that wasn't a big thing, but getting and working with people became the big thing for me.
Go to Pete.
Yeah, I mean, when I looked at the certificates that I didn't start out for that. I was just modeling, and Chuck put the bite on me there to do some of this and submit paperwork. But it got me into some areas that I really took me out of my comfort zone. The third certificate I earned was author, and I'm a straight C writing student in high school. I mean, I think my teacher had a rubber stamp C on, and here I've had articles published in national magazines. I'm still writing for our club newsletter every month, an article, and that got me out of a comfort zone of just sitting in my training room and not talking to anybody. As Chuck said, met a lot of great people. I mean, and doing that. So it taught me to come out of that, even though got my number and got my little MMR thing. I'm still learning to reach out and use what I've learned to further my skills.
Bruce?
When I was first getting started, I had a couple of certificates, but I was getting into the cars and structures and the kinds of things that, quite honestly, scared me, because I was the guy, when I built a model plane in junior high school, you could always tell that I was the one that built it, because I had my fingerprints and glue on the outside of it. I just, that was not my thing. And so, and I was really quite concerned as to whether I could. I'm a graduate engineer, so the electrical stuff and that didn't bother me, but I wasn't sure I could do the qualitative stuff. And somebody told me that the biggest thing you'll learn in the process is how to fix your own mistakes. And I realized that, and I've seen some interesting things show up in that. In, like, one guy was building a nice structure, and he pointed out the fact that there was a woodpecker digging a hole into the side of this mine that he had built, because he drilled a hole where he didn't want it. So he put a woodpecker on it.
If I can add that, Bruce, absolutely. I am the king of do-overs. Almost everything on my layout has been done twice. You can't just settle. I talk to a lot of these folks locally here who are working towards a program, and they finish, they think they're done. Really look at it. You need to give it a creative eye and go back and look at it. Model for yourself. If you really care, you'll wind up getting enough merit points to qualify. But you really have to be ready to do it over.
All right, thanks, guys. We'll go to the next question, and we might just stick with you, Pete, for this. What first got you into the hobby?
It was a strange thing. I was a plastic airplane builder when I was probably 11 or 12, and I gravitated to building plastic ships and spacecraft, and wound up modeling, scratch building ships, wooden ships. And I happened to be in a hobby shop in Indianapolis, Indiana one day, looking for some stuff I could use for my ships, and I stumbled across a used N-scale engine and a couple of cars, and I bought it and brought it to my apartment and put it on a board, and I wound up abandoning the ships and changing over to so I was an N-scaler up until 2012. So that was 1979 when I jumped into this.
Cool. And we'll go to John.
So I grew up in the 60s and 70s, and ever since I can remember, I was always building something. In the 60s, I was into models of the space race, Apollo missions and all that. And I was in the hobby store one day with my mom. I guess I was around 10. And I saw an issue of Model Railroader, and I picked it up and bought it and went home. And what really got me going is all those Campbell scale diorama ads. Yeah, I just got hooked. And from that point on, I built a small 4x8 plywood layout in my family room. And that's really what got me hooked, was that issue of Model Railroader.
Chuck.
Basically, it goes back to third grade. I met a lifelong friend in third grade and went to his house, and he had an HO model railroad in the basement. And at that point, I had Lionel, and his just looked so real. It just looked unbelievably real compared to Lionel. So that started me on the hobby and started me going. And between that and my mother buying me a book called Short Line to Paradise on the Yosemite Valley, that got me into logging. So it's been sort of a lifelong pursuit.
Bruce?
I had Lionel as a kid, and when I was in high school, we moved, and it didn't make the move, and yada yada yada. And about 25 years ago, something like that, I wanted something to go around the Christmas tree. And so I said, hey, um, I'll get a train. And I went over to a local hobby shop, and he starts saying, well, do you want diesel or steam? And I said, well, I'd like steam. He says, well, okay. I said, in fact, I'd like steam narrow gauge. And he goes, okay. So he sent me over to Coronado Hobbies, and I walked in, and he okay, here's a box full of parts for $600. And I'm going, no, that wasn't quite what I had in mind. And so I went out and I bought a Bachman or something or other set, and it ran around the Christmas tree about 4 times before it died. And then shortly thereafter, we moved into the subdivision that we're in here. That was about 98, 97. And we started, a bunch of guys said, hey, we're going to start a model railroad club. And I said, wow, that's cool. And that was my introduction to model railroading, was this club. And that's what led me into a DCC. And that whole thing was just being part of this club, which has just been shut down in the last year because they took our space away. But, it's just, everybody comes from a different path. And it's really fun to see how we got there.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's do another question. So this is topic close to Gordy's heart. Jim asks, what do you think is the main thing that we can do to get younger people involved in model railroading again? With the NMRA board of directors saying their target age is 45, we're going to not broach the subject of people under 18, but people under 45 as younger people. And then I can nicely fit in that category. So what would be your thoughts around involving younger people in model railroading? John?
Well, I've had a lot of visitors to my layout, and I think the best way to get somebody into the hobby is let them actually see a layout. I've just had so many young people, a lot of my son's friends, and just friends of mine that had no idea what the hobby is about. And when they come down and see it, they're just, blown away at what you can do. And of course, I try to, explain to them a little bit about the hobby and what's available, and how you can get into it. So for me, I think letting people actually see it, firsthand, I think that's a good way of getting them into it.
We'll go to Chuck and then Bruce.
Okay, I totally agree with John. In the Houston area here, I'm 60, 70 miles from Houston, but the Houston area has every November, they have a model railroad open house. It starts like the last weekend of October and goes through the first weekend of December. And we normally have about 60 plus layouts that open up for the public. We put it out at hobby shops and things like that we're opening up in different weekends. So you don't have to be open every weekend. And we get a lot of people come by, and the amount of people that are just intrigued by what we do and want to know more information. We try to pass out club brochures and NMRA stuff and stuff like that while we're doing it. But we're usually open for the month of November. Don't know what's going to happen this year. It may be a video thing, but we'll see.
Cool. We'll go to Bruce.
I was at the 2019 convention in Salt Lake City. Saw Gordy there, actually. But the thing that I saw was several people, and we talked about this in a couple of different clinics and that sort of thing. There were several people there where there was, like, I'll pick up one, was a mother and son situation where the son was autistic, and he wanted to get into a club that was a 100% club, so they wound up joining the NMRA, and I don't know what this whole 18 rule is going to do to that, but it's probably not going to affect that, because usually in those cases, the parent wants to be there with the child anyhow. But what happens is you get a 2-for-1 out of that group of people, because you have something that really seems to help the autistic child, and you have the parent getting involved in the things that are going on, and that's a wonderful thing to be able to see, and it's kind of nice to get a 2-for-1, and the parents that come in that are in that sweet spot of people that aren't just trying to start out their house and their family and all that, but they're more established, and they might have the availability of some time and some finances to actually do something with model railroading.
If I can finish this off, I've been involved in youth sports most of my life. I've coached 3 generations of Leach boys, my brother, my 2 sons, and my 2 grandsons. And it's sad that we have to do at the NMRA. I understand it. But my thought is we need to plant seeds. What Chuck didn't mention is that we also, our local Houston club, it's the San Jacinto Model Railroad Club, hosts a large train show in February usually, and where it's open to the public. We have thousands of people come through over is it a 2-day or just 1 day? 1 day, I guess. It just seems like 2. And we're planting seeds. There we get a lot of families coming through. They're seeing modulars. They can pick up bargains from the tables and stuff like that. In addition, myself, I failed to really spread the seed with my 2 sons. I was too nitpicky with them on when they tried to build their layout. I've taken a bunch of my N scale stuff out of the closet, and I've built a layout for my grandsons, who are now, they started when they were 5 and 7, and they've been at it for a couple of years now. And they're building an N scale layout underneath mine. I'm trying to plant seeds. They come over to Grandpa's house and they can run trains. I make sure the track is worked, but I'm letting them paint the cars or whatever the color they want. I'm letting them do all the scenery and all this stuff, and nothing's prototypical, but who cares? So and we need to find a way to plant seeds with those generations while we're trying to recruit the old bucks like myself to join the club later in life.
Cool. Thanks, guys. Okay. Next question, back to Jeff in Australia. In your local groups, your local NMRA groups, how do you promote or encourage members to take part in the achievement program? Bruce first.
Well, of course, that's kind of my job as the AP manager for the division, but I started a newsletter that's sent out to the division. In fact, it's available online on our division website, which is azdiv-nmra, I believe it is, and in the achievement program section. And I sent out, it was a 2-page thing. I sent it out the 1st of August, and I've gotten 3 people since I sent that out that said, I really want to work on my MMR. And in the month of August, one of them got his qualified for his Golden Spike, Author, Scenery, Structures, and Electrical. He needs to build track for civil. He needs a couple of signatures for his dispatcher, and he needs the cars. And I think that's it. Anyhow, he may be done by the end of the year, and a couple others are getting some certificates. It's really starting to pay off. So I think the biggest thing is just getting the program in front of people. When I joined the Arizona division, at every division meet, they'd stand up and they'd pass out these certificates to people. And what does it mean? What does it prove? What's that all about? And it's just right over my head because nobody was explaining it. I started doing clinics about the program and how the program works and the difference between judging and evaluation and all these sorts of things. And we're seeing more participation as a result of it.
That's cool. Thanks, Bruce. Anyone else want to add anything about their local groups?
One thing that I know Chuck has done, Chuck belongs to the same club I belong to, and he's personally handed me every certificate and award that or merit thing I've gotten, and he does it in front of the club. our local club is a quasi division and vice versa. So being recognized, I think it incites people to, rather than just having it mailed in your house, it gets people excited. We have 2 or 3 people, whether it's envy or jealousy, I don't know, but they're saying, hey, well, Pete Leach got it, so maybe I can do this too. And so but certainly bringing it out that it's there. I didn't even know about this thing, to tell you the truth. I thought this was, every time I see MMR, I thought that was some degree you had to get from some college or something. I didn't know what it was. So making sure people are aware of it is important.
Cool. Okay, we'll go to another question. If we're all good. So another question. This is quite a good one. This is coming from a gentleman who is just joined the NMRA, Dan up in the Twin Cities, and he's asking: Are your regions or divisions doing any virtual meetings or any virtual work sessions at the moment? All right, everyone's doing their hands up, which is a good sign. I like that. We'll go Chuck, and then John, and then Bruce. Okay.
Yes, we have pretty well gone virtual in a lot of our things. I mean, I can now. The good part is I don't have to travel to see all the other divisions in my region that are doing it, because I can drop in on a Zoom conference and watch that. And our local club that Pete and I belong to, they're having a Zoom conference. One of the other things that I thought was rather interesting is, I guess, just because we want to visit with people that we don't get to see now. They're having a show and tell every couple Sundays where you just get to sit and talk with people and show them the project you work on. And I mean, I think that's been a rather nifty thing for keeping people involved in the hobby and showing you, because there's another group that Pete and I go to called Petticoat Junction, and we bring models to that all the time for people to look at. And that's sort of how I got Pete into it. I told him, I said, you're building this stuff, you need to have it judged. And that's what it worked. So then I'll pass it on to John.
Yes, good question. My division started a weekly Zoom meeting every Wednesday, and we do clinics, presentations, layout tours. I did a layout tour of my layout, and I understand the Northeast region, the NER, is going to be doing a virtual convention in December. So I'll be doing some clinics there and probably a tour. I do a lot of Facebook posts in various model railroading groups, and I was invited to do a layout tour a few months ago in the Dallas, one of the Dallas divisions. I forget which one it was, but yeah, it's huge now, and I think it's going to be permanent, even if this. Even if we have the virus go away and everything's back to normal, I think it's still going to be prevalent, because it's a great way to get people together. You don't have to travel, and you can just sit in your home and see a nice presentation or a layout. So I think it's here to stay.
Go to Bruce.
Yeah, there are several things going on in that sort of thing. For example, the San Diego division is having a meet that was kind of impinging upon this today. I participated in the LSR Division 1 meet earlier this morning. So it works out. And the thing not to forget, and Gordy, you might throw a pitch in here for what's available on the NMRAx setup, because it's just working out. And it's just announced that here in the Arizona division, we're going to do a Zoom build program starting in a couple of weeks. We got a special kit coming from Foss, and that our division director, Frank Baker, who is an amazing structure builder, is going to walk people through step by step building a small craftsman kit. And he's expecting it to be 8 one-hour sessions, maybe every day, maybe every other day, something like that, and work on it and let people see what he's doing and work right along with him. So it's going to be kind of a fun make it and take it.
That's cool. No, I think I think we'll plug NMRAx at this point. There's a lot going on. I think now from an AP perspective, it's never been easier to get your volunteer and your author points right now. Never, because you can jump on a regional meeting in a different region and go and give a clinic and get points for that, either as a volunteer or author. It's something that's not been really readily available. Whereas you may have in your local division had to wait on a big waiting list and you're in a big division to be able to give a clinic at your divisional meeting. There's divisions all over the place now doing virtual meetings, crying out for clinicians. Especially my own division in Scotland and around the world. So I think I echo what you guys have just said. It's a great time, and from an NMRAx perspective, for those few 65 people that are watching this live, and the people that watch this recorded, hopefully before what I'm about to say happens, is that in December, between Christmas and New Year, the team here at NMRAx are looking to do the world's biggest make and take clinic, and we want to do a clinic where everyone will download a card kit. We can't do a Craftsman structure like a Fosco kit because it's simply impossible for everybody to get that shipped to themselves and make it cost effective. But we're going to do something where everyone can download the same kit and we can all make it together. And we'll obviously not be we'll stream it, but we'll be able to invite NMRA members to come in and actually get some tuition. We'll see how that goes with 200 people doing the same thing. It could be chaos, but we will see how that goes. It might hopefully make. Why not 500 people, eh? But anyway, it's all to come, so thank you for that question. We'll go back to another question now from Brad, another Aussie. They beat us at the cricket, by the way. Terrible. So another question here is, how do we encourage the younger generation to start their journey to MMR? What would your recommended first steps be? Go to Pete.
I think that's a tough one. I mean, it's kind of intimidating. I think we have to watch that we don't pressure some of the younger folks into feeling they need to do this, because we could push them out of the hobby. You don't need to be an MMR to be a good model railroader. It's not going to be for everybody. That's for sure. Otherwise, we would have thousands and tens of thousands of folks with certificates. But what we need to do is encourage them to be good modelers and be good model railroaders, and to learn the various skills that you can from a lot of these clinics. We have a couple of younger folks that in our local club, that one of them he's a son of an MMR. He's striving. School's getting in the way. The other one, I don't think he's really interested, but he's a really good modeler. He gives clinics. So, just keep him in the hobby, and then at some point, if it fits them, then we need to encourage them, softly, carefully. So,
okay, thanks.
Those are my thoughts.
Yeah, I totally agree. If you're new to the hobby, you need to get your feet wet and learn a lot about, what scenery and track laying and structure building. There's just bench work. There's so much to learn, and to try to pressure yourself to get this achievement, which for most of us, we've been in the hobby, a long time, and we've developed our skills. It's not a walk in the park. It takes some work and some good background to get these awards, certificates. So again, don't pressure yourself if you're new in the hobby. There's a lot to learn. I mean, there's so much out there, books, YouTube videos, these types of events where you can, learn the skills you need to get to where you want to go.
We'll go to Bruce, and then we'll go to Chuck.
The thing that I'll go back to what Pete said earlier. He's talking about the fact that he was a C writing student. Well, that's what MMR is all about, because the things that need to be evaluated have to earn 70% of the possible points. So that's kind of a C where I grew up, and that's really what it's all about. It's not about being that you have to be an A or an A plus student. It's that you can do C work, and you have to do a fair amount of it, but that you can do it, and you can. And if you do D work, and you get shown how to make it better.
Oh God.
Your young people come in, they want to be able to run trains and
Hang on,
they want
guys.
to see something happening. Whoop.
Alright, sorry guys, that was totally Gordy's fault. Hopefully, yeah, we should be back with where we need to be. Sorry, totally Gordy's fault.
Okay. Well, we won't punish you too bad, Gordy. Yeah. What I was saying is they want to run trains, and through this we've gotten people in San Antonio. I know the Austin group, the Dallas group. They've got them into operations, and a lot of the kids are looking at the younger ones are looking at that. It's a big video game that takes place right there in action, and they're able to do something and work it, and they like that. You might try to get them to run trains first, and then bring them in with the building of the pieces and the laying the track and doing things like that. Get them started in something they enjoy first.
Okay, cool. We're going to go to some quick fire questions on. We're going to go to some quick fire questions on AP kind of rules, regs, that kind of stuff. Question that we've got from Ken. Does the prototype scene need to be a certain size or square footage?
I mentioned earlier, I don't think so. I don't, it's up to whoever's judging it. That's part of the vagueness of this thing. It's got to be complete. Right, Chuck?
Yes, sir. Mine, as I said, was O-scale bridge. I mean, we're talking 7 foot long. But it has to have all the certain things in it. It has to have, I had to have a train on top of it. I had to have the structure. I had to have a caboose. There was several items you had to have in that same scene. So I don't think size is as big a thing. I don't think it has to be so many square foot like scenery. Mine, as I said, was O-scale.
One thing I'll contribute to
bridge.
Is
I mean, we're talking 7 foot.
The NMRA website is the Bible. That's where
long.
all the rules are laid down.
But it has to have all.
A lot of times you'll go in there and it'll say, well, don't overthink this, don't do this or whatever else, because that's what people tend to do. They tend to make it more difficult than it was intended to be. Now, you can make it as difficult as you want it to be. That's a different topic, but it doesn't have to be that different. And I'm not talking about prototype. I'm talking about anything related to the MMR or the achievement program. And I do know that I came up through the situation here where things were presented kind of off the cuff, and some of the answers that we got weren't necessarily right. And you talk to three different people and you get three different answers as to what was important. And some of that has been ironed out by some changes in the regulations and the evaluation procedures and that sort of thing. But the key point is, if you got a question, go to the NMRA website, read what's there, download this SOQ, the Statement of Qualifications, because that is your statement that you're qualified for this award, and go through that like a pilot goes through a checklist. I mean, bing, 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 everything. When you've got them all checked off, then you're ready to have somebody come and look at what you got.
Alright, cool. Thanks, guys. We're going to go to another question. This question's from David. He asks, when building a model to get a certificate, does it matter what scale it's built in? I.e., could he build something in Z scale, or does it really have to be one of the larger scales like HO or O scale? I guess the question's really about detail. We're going to go to John, then we'll go to Chuck, and then we'll go to another question.
As far as I know, it can be any scale as long as it's to scale. If you're building something in Z scale, make sure it's to scale. But as far as I know, Z, N, H, O, G, O, it doesn't really matter.
In the Lone Star, we have had from Z scale up to 7.5-inch gauge brought into the contest room for judging. Car and a caboose, and the only thing I can say is the bigger scales cry out for more detail. Something you can get by with in Z scale, you're not going to be able to get by with in O scale. There's going to be some differences there. I mean, that's the biggest thing I can see in the different scales. And once you get to 7.5-inch gauge, you gotta have everything on it. Everything's got to work.
Good point, Chuck.
Go to Bruce.
I was going to say a similar thing. We just got an MMR here in the Arizona division, and he has everything from HON3 to 7.5-inch gauge, including getting motive power in 7.5-inch gauge, which is a lot of machining work.
One thing to add, in your structures, for example, you could have structures of multiple scales. It doesn't all have to be HO or N. You could have a Z scale or up to 7.5 gauge, like Chuck said. And that holds true in cars as well, and I'm sure in maybe some of the other areas, even civil. You could have a turnout in one scale and another turnout in another scale. It doesn't really matter.
All right, cool. We're gonna flip to another question, I think, just to get through some of these questions. So Jeremy's asking about merit assessment for merit award, and he's just starting out, and he's wondering around how merit assessments work, and did you receive, when you did your first merit, how did your first merit assessments go? Did you receive suggestions to improve if you didn't receive the merit on the model? Go to Chuck.
One of the things I would advise is when you have a local convention, spend some time in the contest room. The fellows in the contest room are usually more than happy to share their, I don't want to call them tricks because they're not tricks, their techniques, their ideas and things like that. And work on your merit road. I mean, start working up. There was up in Dallas, they started people with a flat car. And then, okay, we got a flat car. Now we're going to add on to that flat car and keep building up. So you could start with one thing and then work your way up in the hobby as far as your merit. get one thing done and get a merit on that, and then move to your next area.
Down to Pete.
One of the things I've brought models to contest rooms, I've just had them brought to the local folks and for judging or assessing, as we're saying. I think sometimes in the contest rooms it may get a little hectic, and you don't always get all the feedback. So if you don't get feedback that you want, make sure you go back to the contest chair of that event to make sure that that they can get you some information, because there's nothing more frustrating than getting a score that you don't understand. You can't improve it. But generally, if you're taking it to, like, Chuck and some other folks in our division have come out and done a lot of mine, and they've written down some things, some comments that are very helpful to make me a better model. Otherwise, you're just a C student with no chance to be an A, right? So.
Thanks, Pete. We're going to go to Bruce.
The thing is, and this is where I'm a big fan of evaluation as opposed to contest judging, because evaluation can be, and really in my mind should be, a dialogue between the modeler and the evaluation team as to what was being done, why it was being done, how it was being done, which also leads to moving forward to, okay, then if it were this way, it would earn more points. If you did this, here's what we see looking at it that you may not see because you built it, that would make it a better structure or a better car or whatever else you're looking for.
Okay, we'll go to John.
Yeah, just one last thing. You don't have to bring a model to a contest to have it assessed. There should be somebody in your division that's qualified to assess and score your model. In my division, there was at least 2 or 3 guys that did most of my assessment for merit.
We'll go up to Bruce, and then we're going to move on to another question.
Just a quick point. The division AP manager is the person who says who can and cannot evaluate within that division. Anybody who has a certificate in, say, structures is supposed to be able to evaluate in that division, and an NMR is supposed to be able to evaluate anything. Well, that's not necessarily the best use of some people, but those are the rules. But outside, if you're working outside of your division, you need the regional AP manager's approval to evaluate. Just some things to think of.
Cool. We'll move on to another question. So there's quite a few. I'm going to do a question that I've had in on scenery, then we're going to go back to a quick assessment question, which is quite cool. And Frank has joined us. Frank Koch, who is the national AP manager, has joined us in the chat, and I know he's responding to some of your comments and he's answering some of the questions before I even get into them, but that's okay, because there's quite a lot of questions coming while you guys have been going, and I don't think we're going to get through all of them. But Phil asks, he's heard pros and cons about sifting dirt into wet paint for scenery. Has anyone ever come across that technique or got any tips and advice? John?
Yeah, I use it a lot on my layout. I think it's a great way to build your base. I'm a big proponent of Dave Frary, his scenic techniques. And basically, for me, any surface that I'm going to consider terrain other than mountains, that's what I do. I put down a layer of latex paint and sift real dirt into it right away. And when it dries, you have a good base for adding, other scenery such as static grass and foam and things like that.
Cool, thanks, John. Okay, so question that's come in, it's kind of tied into what we were just talking about, but I wanted to just step away from that topic and come back to it. with not many at all face-to-face events taking place at the moment, what virtual or what options are available to people, virtually or otherwise, to have their models assessed that you're aware of? And there's a question further down here that I want to kill as well for Chuck or Pete. That I'm aware that the LSR is assessing a modeler in Mexico, and the question is, have either of you been involved in working with our member that's down in Mexico City? So we'll come to question 2 in a sec, but question 1, what things do you know that are available to members for assessment during this period of restrictions? Chuck?
At this, the biggest problem you've got in virtual, it's really hard to judge a model and to see the detail and to see, I've seen all kinds of cameras. I've seen all kinds of things. We had a fella trying to show something a few weeks ago with a camera. I don't know how old his camera was, but it's the worst pictures I've ever seen coming out of it. Now, to judge something like that would be almost impossible. I mean, you've got some situations there. It's going to be very difficult to take on something like that and to do it virtual. I think, personally, I've still been going around to helping judging at people's houses. It doesn't, I figured, what the heck? I'll help them where I can help them.
Okay. Anyone else want to add anything down to Pete? Just a second.
Yeah, I actually listened in on one of the other Ask MMRs, and I know they talked about this, and I think what they talked about is if it's a high-scoring model or a low-scoring model, it's easy to evaluate that way. It's the ones that are in that 80-point range, a few points either way. And I know I've got a good friend here in Houston who got, just 2 points short of the qualifying number, and there's no way you could do that virtually. You'd have to see it in person. So that's going to be the toughest thing that the organization has going forward, as long as we're 6 feet apart.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm the contest chair for my division, and I don't see how it can be done, especially for structures or cars, and even scenery. It really requires a personal visit.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Thanks, guys. I'll say that.
Now, you want to ask about the one in Mexico?
I was just going to go on to the one in Mexico.
Yeah. I got involved with that one. As I said, I used to be contest chair down here, and I've also now president. We had a fellow that's come to the LSR conventions. He is from Mexico City. He's got a huge layout in Mexico City. And one of our directors that used to be in the San Antonio area got him interested in the AP program. Well, in Mexico, he has nobody. There is nobody down in Mexico to help him. And so we've had some fellows that have, on their own, have flown down there and spent the weekend with the guy and judged a lot of his layout. He's got a very large layout in Mexico, and he does some really quality work. And he has been up here to, I think, about 3 of our conventions in the LSR. So we're just trying to help the fellow. He doesn't seem to be able to get any help anywhere else. So the LSR just sort of said, we'll help you where we can help you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I know Eduardo's listening tonight, and Eduardo is in Mexico City and has been a clinician on NMRAx from Mexico a few times. And Eduardo asked me a few months ago, was there anybody else that we knew about in Mexico City? And of course, I didn't at that time, but I would hope that we can connect Eduardo and our gentleman in Mexico City and potentially get an NMRAx layout tour organised of this absolutely huge layout. I think if it's as big as what I heard, which was that it was 30 meters by 90 meters, and it was HO, is it, Chuck?
Sorry, it was HO.
It's HO, yeah. So it's a fair size layout. That is huge. Even the Aussies right now are getting jealous of how big that layout is. So, and they've got loads of space and not many people, so they'll be getting jealous. So that just tells you all how big it is. Right. question from Sweden. In Sweden, public shows modular model railroad is quite popular, like Fremo, I think is where we're going. It's very popular in Europe, it's very popular in Sweden. How do you see Fremo in your local areas across in the United States? Clubs and modular groups and stuff. John?
We just have one or two groups that come to our conventions who have. I'm not sure if it's Fremo, to the T, but they are modular. But I don't really see that much of it in the New York area.
Cool. Who wants to go next?
I think modular is going to be a way for a lot of people. We had a convention in Austin a couple of years ago, and one of the fellows talked about it. A lot of your younger people coming up through the thing cannot get the houses that some of us older guys have got that have the space for a model railroad. And modular type construction, he suggested, as being the way of the future for some of the younger people that want to get into operating and want to get into building railroads. They can gather together, put it up, and then operate their railroad.
Bruce?
Up in the Salt Lake area, there's a whole bunch of youngsters that are involved with, and I know some in the Flagstaff area and all that, with what is it called? TT?
T-Track.
T-Track, yeah. And they're having a ball with it. And what does it do? It gets them building a little. It's part of the question we asked before about how do we get people involved. It gets them into building some stuff, being creative, and coming up with something that they can get together with a half a dozen of their friends and, just as you said, run trains and have fun with that.
Cool. Okay, cool. Good. We'll move on to another question. Okay, so I've got a question here about paperwork, and somebody found the AP paperwork on the NMRA website and saw there's lots of documentation and there's lots of things to read and there's lots of paperwork to complete for some of the certificates. And it can be very discouraging, the paperwork side of getting your MMR. Have you got any thoughts around how someone can make their lives easier? Chuck? Go to Chuck.
I'll start out with what Bruce said earlier. Don't read it and make it harder than it is. The best way, if you're interested in doing one of the categories, is when you read it, if you got questions, get with your AP people, get with some of the people that do the evaluations and things like that in your area, get with them and go over it. It might not be as difficult as you think it is. Too many people try to read in way too many things when they read the paperwork. Yes, there's a lot of steps you have to go through, but check them off as you go, but work at it. You're going to get through it. I mean, get with people and ask questions.
Yeah, exactly, Chuck. When I was going through my different certificates, my AP chair, Mike Siegel, helped a lot. And there's always going to be someone you can reach out to, whether a phone call or an email. And like Chuck said, don't read too deep into it. It's really not that difficult, and there's help out there for you.
Pete?
Yeah, to go on what John said, I had one that was way overthinking, and I got a hold of Chuck, and I drove out to Chuck's house. We sat in that one of the, I don't think it was there, it was in the train room, your workshop, and we went through it, and he got a hold of Dwayne, our AP chairman for the region, and we got on the phone with him and walked through, this is what it is. I was way overthinking the requirement. The paper, if you get through the requirement, people will help you with the paperwork. I'm discouraged when we have 3 or 4 modelers in our club and our division who don't want to do the paperwork. They've done all the hard stuff. The paperwork is just paperwork. So, we've actually, I think Division 8 has even had bring your paperwork to the clinic and we'll help you fill it out type of thing. So that's how we can help people get beyond that. They get roadblock or a mind block on it. So.
Yeah, go on, Bruce.
In the PSR, we've actually done clinics at our regional conventions where we brought in containers full of all the paperwork. People showed up and we sat down and we've had 4 or 5 not merit awards, but 4 or 5 certificates get signed off in those clinics just because of what's there. And there are some places where you have to generate a drawing or something like that. But as far as the actual paperwork that says, here's what's going on, the only thing that the modeler absolutely has to do is sign a signature on the bottom of the SOQ. He can have help with all the rest of it.
All right, thanks, guys. We're gonna move on. Frank has specifically asked me a question, which gives me an opportunity to give you guys a breather for a second, whilst I have a shameless marketing plug. Okay, so Frank's asked for the online clinic that we're planning in December. What about using one of the Clever Models cardstock downloadable kits? That's exactly what we're planning to use, Frank. And they are an NMRA partner. People are not aware of this. The NMRA is a partnership scheme with over 45 manufacturers and vendors, and they offer member discounts through discount codes through their websites. And it's an easy way, simple way. From one order, you can recoup the value of your membership, especially if you're in the United States. Most of these are located in the United States, but we also have U-Gears out in Ukraine, and a few people that are in the UK that ship also through Wolfers network in the US as well. So great stuff, great material. All the stuff there has been tried and tested by our master model railroaders at the NMRA. So it all comes highly recommended. So go on our website nmra.org, look for search a partnership program. It's easier than telling you where the menus are. If you're a member of the NMRA, log in on the go to partnership program as part of member benefits in the members home area. And you should see all the discount codes as you look through all the stuff that's there, and it's some great stuff. So there's a shameless plug for that, and we'll move back into some questions. We're just at the point. I'm in the point in the feed where I screwed it up. Yes, I screwed it up. Yes, this is me on my own doing this tonight. No, it's not because the team decided that they wanted to put me through any pain. It's because I said I'll be able to do this on my own, and then I went and clicked on the wrong button. But hey, human error. It happens. This is live TV. At least it's midnight in Orkney at the moment, so Annabelle, my daughter, shouldn't come barging in the room, but we'll see. Okay, so lots of positive and negative stuff about digital. That's the way it goes. Ralph Renzetti asks, does selective compression count if you're doing a prototype model? So if you were going to do a prototype model and say you had a HO scale structure in the foreground and you had a TT or an N scale structure in the background to get the depth of scene based on your photographs, is that going to count towards the award, or does everything need to be in the same scale? Go to Pete.
I've got an HO model of a truck in a force. What he's talking about is force perspective.
Yeah.
I use force perspective in 3 major parts of my ON30 layout, and I even have an N scale buildings in one corner. But if you're talking about getting a structure, assessed for building or whatever, and you can make a drawing. I've done that. I've selectively compressed something so that it fit on my layout, and I made a drawing of what I changed, and you're judged on your conformity to what you said it is, which is the drawing I presented. So there's 2 different things there. I think they're talking about.
Yeah, I confused that there. It's my fault again.
Oh, okay.
It's 10 past midnight.
It's late. It's late.
It's always late. All right, cool. We'll move on to. If this thing would just work, we'll move on to another question. Question. Lots of thank yous. Lots of thank yous. Eduardo, we mentioned whereabouts in that, so T-track, paperwork. Okay, cool. So where's my next question? So a question about assessments. If something, what should somebody do if they think that their model's going to fall short of a merit award? Should they put it in for assessment to get the feedback, or should they not waste the assessor's time? What should they do? Go to John, then Chuck.
Yeah, absolutely. Bring it in for assessment, because that's what that's what the person who's assessing it, his job is to show them, not necessarily criticize, but show them what you can do better with it. I've had many models I've judged that didn't make merit, and a month or two later, the same model would come back and would make merit because of the constructive criticism that I gave. So yeah, definitely bring it in. Don't hold back.
I'll agree with John on that all the way, because we try to get them in the LSR. We bring them in. We have a good group of people that sit in the contest room. You know, it's our place to rest and sit there and talk to modelers. And a lot of people will come in and ask about their model, and you can sit down and give them a little constructive ideas on, you know, do this, you can get some points. Do this, you can get a few more points. So don't be afraid to bring it in. You're not wasting anybody's time by bringing it in. The only thing you're wasting is a chance not to learn how to make that model better, or it may already merit. So you'll be surprised.
Bruce?
Carrying on with what Chuck just said, it may merit. I had several things that I built. I looked at them and I said, for example, I built a couple of ON30 flat cars that I figured 90, 92 points maybe, something like that. And the evaluation came out at 114. So, you know, it's really easy to sit there and say, gee, this isn't very good. And then you give it to a group of people and they look at it and say, wow, this is great. And, you know, you can sit there and say, well, you know, maybe I didn't want it to be this way, but it is this way. And that's fine. That's, you know, it's easy to be too critical on yourself.
I mean, for the four of us here, I mean, I know the hardest thing for me was getting my first model assessed. I literally brought it to a contest room and set it down and walked away. I didn't want anybody to know that I brought it. I was almost embarrassed by it. I was ashamed in even bringing it. But it's that first time you're stepping out of the shadows. So you're not wasting anybody's time. You know, do it. Get it out there, and then you'll get the ball rolling. You'll feel better about yourself. If it does merit, if it doesn't, go back and fix it, as John says. So you're not wasting people's time.
Okay, so I have a question for you guys that's related to that. So we have a kind of pre-achievement program, beginner's achievement program certificate called the Golden Spike, where people can go in. You don't need to merit. You just need to get familiar with assessing your stuff. It was a great initiative, helped in part by a British Region member, Steve Park, who's an honorary life member of the NMRA now. And he helped push this forward, where you take some of your models and you display them. You don't have to merit on them, but you could. But it's an opportunity to get familiar, to bringing something into the room and showing what you've done and getting feedback. What's your guys' views on the Golden Spike, Bruce?
I'm particularly, I don't know, persnaggled about that, if you will. I don't have one because I didn't learn about it until after I had my MMR. And so I'm really glad that we're bringing it up, because that should be the starting point. And in fact, you don't even have to bring it to an evaluation or into anything. You can bring another NMRA member over to your layout, Go down and check off the things that are there, and they sign it off and send it into your regional AP manager. You don't have to have a big team evaluation or anything else. It's just another member says, yes, you did this. And you don't, you know, the track work is, it can be commercial track on commercial roadbed with commercial ballasted. But you don't have to do any of the fancy stuff, if you will, that are involved with civil and that sort of thing. And boy, it's a great place to get your feet wet.
Chuck?
I'm just exactly like Bruce. I started my MMR program back in the 80s, and nobody mentioned a golden spike. I don't know if it existed back then, but you know, I can't qualify for the golden spike anymore. So we need to push it. I've been trying to push it to anybody that's building a layout. As you're building a layout, you're going to have a golden spike by the time you get partway through the layout. So get out, get somebody to come over and look at your layout and get it judged.
Yeah, I had the opposite experience. So for me, the golden spike was the first step, and it was kind of like, you know, a push. Like, yeah, you know, I got this award, or whatever you want to call it, and it kind of gave me the impetus to you know, to explore the other areas, the other certificates. So yeah, it's definitely a good first step.
Cool. Thanks, guys. Okay. Where are we at? Wow, we got through a lot of stuff there tonight. Wow. Okay, I'm gonna give you guys, like, that are watching five more minutes ish to get more questions in. Otherwise, we may finish a little bit earlier than was originally planned. But that's cool. A couple of things to tell everyone about that's going on while we wait for a few more questions to just drop their way into this. The people that help the NMRAx Model Railroading Live have a live YouTube show at 9 p.m. Eastern on Model Railroading Live YouTube, and it's Who's Big Bill Talking To is their show tonight. So if you've needing some more Saturday night entertainment or Sunday morning entertainment in Australia, New Zealand, then get yourselves over after our event. Don't retune your set right now. I'm showing my age now. I'm not even that old. But don't retune your set just yet. But get yourselves over and check out Model Railroading Live on YouTube to see their show, Who's Big Bill Talking To, straight after this. So let's see what we've got there from a few questions that we maybe skipped over a little bit earlier. So. Engagement with members. This is more of a general question, of opinion piece question. I skipped over it because it was an opinion piece question, but we'll come to it now. How do you feel that as an organisation we should reach out to members who are maybe not on social media? A lot of the stuff that's going on today now, this is on social media. How in your regions do you reach out? So the person who's asked this question has said that their division recently did a survey electronically, and only 40% of the membership even opened the survey. I guess they did it by email. And their regional newsletter is only open by 50% of members. So where we're doing AP and stuff outside of division meetings, what do you guys do to promote AP? I know we mentioned something earlier in the chat, but what do you guys do in your division or region to promote AP outside of meetings? John?
Well, yeah, mainly email for my division. In my division, there's quite a few of the population are the older guys. You know, and it's even with our Zoom presentations we have every Wednesday, it's kind of hard to get some of those guys in. I think they're a little intimidated. You know, we try to help them and say, like, you know, a Zoom thing is almost essentially one click. You click on the invitation and it takes you right through. But email. I mean, I think we've even done some mailings to some of the members, but we also do a quarterly newsletter called the Cannonball. That used to get mailed out a hard copy, but now it's strictly a electronic copy through email. So, unfortunately, there's not a whole lot of good ways of getting through to people. I think email is probably the best way, and that's what we do.
I guess it's got to be, John, that it's reliant on members themselves to make sure their information is updated if they change their email address or their mailing address or telephone number, that they actually tell their local region or division. Otherwise, all of a sudden, the flow of information will be cut off and nobody will know. Okay, cool. We're gonna go flip to some. We're gonna flip to actually some questions from the audience. One here from Mark. Mark asks if he works collaboratively on a complex project. In this case, it's electronic. Bruce's ears are pricking up right now that this is an electronic project. But if he's working on a complex project that could lead to a merit award, collaboratively with him and another member, could that still count? How would you advise him to go around, him and his other NMRA member, to go around getting that assessed?
That's covered in the they talk about it on like a husband and wife team, which is the usual thing. And for example, if you're looking at scenery and you're looking at 32 square feet of scenery in HO scale, if a couple builds 64 square feet of scenery in HO scale and they each certify that they did half the work, then that counts. So to me, I would divide up an electrical project the same way. If you need to build something that's this big to qualify, and two people build something that's this big and they each did half of it, it should qualify.
Chuck.
Okay. When I was getting my author, part of that was a collaboration. Myself and another modeler were writing on a museum over in Louisiana that's in a logging museum. And I did the writing, got points for writing. He did photographs, got points for photographs. As long as it's something you can easily divide up on who did what, you're okay. When you're doing electronics, as long as you can divide it up that I did this part that qualifies, I think you'll be okay. You got to be able to take it and divide that piece up. It's not quite as easy as scenery where you just got, I did this half and he did that half. It may be a little bit more difficult with electronics.
Cool, thanks, Chuck. Okay, Ralph Renzetti is going to absolutely murder me, but I always am on the edge of being murdered by somebody. Ralph wants me to ask his question again and ask it very specifically. He means this is around taking a prototype model, making that prototype model smaller than it would be if it was exactly to scale, so that it will fit in the scene, the actual building. So taking a building and making it 75% smaller, would that be able to be entered for the prototype certificate? We're going to go to Chuck, and then we'll go to Pete.
I would say yes. I mean, as long as you're compressing to fit your layout and you're still following, I mean, I've seen the Durango station where they've chopped a section of windows out here and a section of windows out here to compress it to fit their layout. It was judged and scored and it merited. So as long as you've got the drawings to back it up, you've pulled this section out, you indicate all of that while you're doing it in the contest, you're going to be okay in conformity. You're conforming to the rest of the item. You're not just, the way I read it, he's wanting to stay in HO scale or whatever scale he's in and just shorten the building to fit in his area. Compression's been going on in the hobby for years, so I don't see any problem with that. Do your paperwork. What you don't want to show is an uncompressed building when you draw it. and say, this is what I'm doing. Because the judge is going to look at it and go, no, it's not. It's missing 2 sets of windows here and another set of windows here. You didn't build it. When you do it, you got to mark on your drawing where you're taking this out to fit your layout and still keep it the same to conform to the rest of the drawing.
Pete?
Yeah, my town, it was judged for prototype, and the potato warehouse in the corner was not only compressed, but it wasn't even in the right location for the prototype, but I documented it. This was compressed by 50% or whatever it was, and I had to move it from where it is here on the map to over there. I documented all that, and I think I got like 114, but that's selective compression, but just document it. No one's going through and your structures and other models are judged in the structures or cars category on dimension. That's when you get the tape measure out to the drawing. The prototype is more, does the scene you're modeling match what the prototype did, and any deviation you have from that, because we're modelers, just need to document it.
Yeah, Bruce.
I had one that leads to a comment that's slightly off topic, but very, very important. That is the category of conformity. And the general practice is, out of the 25 points for conformity, the maximum that you could, and this is not, gee, this is the way it should look or something or other else. This is how well does it conform to what it should be. And unless you say otherwise, what it should be is what's out there in reality. And that involves plans and photographs. And lack of plans and photographs can cost you 10 points. So that's about 7% off the top if you don't have plans and photographs. And and there's nothing in there that doesn't say that your plan can't actually be an as-built drawing. You know, but you've got to have, if you want those points, you've got to provide something for the evaluators to hang their hat on and say, yes, this conforms. And those are points that people leave on the table all the time.
John?
So to clarify, I think the main part of the question was, can you compress a building out of scale and still qualify? And I think the answer is yes.
Okay, yeah. So thanks for your answers, guys. I'm just going to read out what Frank's put in the chat for everyone who may have missed this. And we're going to move on from this question. And Ralph, if I'm not answering this properly for you, I will get you an answer. Just write to me and I'll get you an answer. But Frank said here, selective compression is acceptable in all categories. Does the model photograph approximate the prototype photograph? Yes or no? Not exact, not necessarily exact. So no one's going out there with a scale ruler to a scale drawing. You know, it's you're looking at, does it approximate it? Okay, so where's my next question? And Bruce also put into the Facebook, for people on Facebook, Bruce put in his AP newsletters into the Facebook feed. Okay, so question from Wayland. Is it possible to have an item judged in a different division for credit if you travel for work? So he travels around the country for work. Is it possible for him to nip into a local division and have his work assessed as he's on the road doing it? Bruce?
Absolutely. I actually got cars out of Mid-Continent region because I was there doing work and the evaluation was done there. So I processed it through there, and yeah, it works just fine.
Yeah, I mean, everything ends up at the national level anyway, so I wouldn't see why it would matter where the assessment's done, whether it's your division or a different division or a different region.
Cool. Thanks, guys. Question from John. I think it's Lloyd actually, but it's okay. It's John for everyone. Question on AP question for structures. What's the panel's views on having a structure judged for the AP via photographs on the internet? For example, if he was to send 10 very high definition photographs of each structure where you're able to see the doorknobs in detail, for example, that level of photograph, you're able to, and it's stacked and you're able to zoom in on it. Would that be acceptable for a remote assessment, John?
That would be a tough one because one of the things that I do when I assess a model is I measure it and make sure it matches. First of all, make sure it's to scale and make sure it matches to the drawing provided. So it's a tough one, and it's probably going to be debated quite a bit. But I don't know. For me, I would think it would be very difficult.
Bruce?
Well, if I remember correctly, and I may be off by a little bit, but Frank Koch sent out last fall a thing about remote evaluation or during the summer, I think it was, and basically that things like electrical and civil, no problems with those because that can be done on a Zoom call or whatever else. But with the subjective things, structures, motive power, and cars, that they've done a bunch of tests, and the midpoint of like 85 to 95 points, somewhere in there, it's very hard to get consistent numbers out of multiple people doing remote evaluation. And so they were not going to accept remote evaluation for items that fell in that midpoint, and I don't remember what it is off the top of my head. But basically what it was is anything that's in that 85 to maybe 100 point, or somewhere in that range, and that, they won't accept something that's really a 95 point model being bumped up to 100 or whatever it was just to get past that threshold. And so, and then apparently they've seen some of that happening. So it's going to be difficult to do those items with the current evaluation capabilities, and that's hopefully we can get better at this. But it's going to require a lot of confidence and testing, I think, before it'll be acceptable.
And Chuck, just before you answer that, I'm just going to come back because Lloyd's come back with a follow-up thing. If his structures are already on the layout, I'm guessing, guys, being an engineer myself, retrospectively having drawn many a thing to get a part made, it's okay to retrospectively make drawings. I think Bruce even actually said this. I think it's okay to do retrospective drawings to submit with your model for assessment even after you've built it. Pete?
Honestly, who's going to know the order in which you did it? Did you draw it first and build it, or like you said, Gordy, you're an engineer. At the end of the day, the two have to match. So I've actually done that on a car before. It came out a little bit different than I had planned, and so I changed the plan. So yeah.
John, then we'll go to Chuck.
Yeah, that's basically called reverse engineering. Okay, I'm a mechanical engineer. I've done that many times in my career, but yeah, as long as it represents what you've built, it shouldn't matter.
Chuck. Mute.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with Pete. Did you draw it first or did you build it first? I'm really bad on this. I usually start building something with no plans. I very seldom have plans. I'm usually the guy that's trying to draw up my sketch and put my things on it at the later time before I take it to the contest room. So I would say not a problem.
Thanks, Chuck. All right, so question actually just a comment there from somebody in the chat that there are videos on the NMRA website, nmra.org, in the members area. So if you join the NMRA, you can get into the members area, and there are videos there that talk through the assessment process, filling in the paperwork, and give you tips and tricks and stuff on all this kind of stuff. So you can go and watch them; they're very useful. Okay, question from Mike Slater. He says he has a scene that he's building that is for prototype. However, there's a bridge on there, and there are no known plans for the bridge in existence. The bridge has been gone since the 1960s, but he does have photographs. So how could he make a scale model of that bridge from the photographs? Bruce?
It's very easy to, well, depending upon the angles and all that, it can be very easy to sit down with a ruler and the photograph and something that you know the size of, and it may not be, accurate to the inch kind of drawing, but make a drawing of what the bridge is, and say, okay, I assumed that this is what that bridge was coming off the photograph, and I built this.
Pete?
Like I said, I did a similar thing on a coal shed for my prototype in my engine yard. All I had was a photograph. There were no drawings, and I made my own drawing so I could build it, because I'm anal. Unlike John, I don't like to reverse engineer. I like to draw it and then build it. So when it got evaluated, they're not evaluating against the prototype drawing. They're evaluating against the prototype photographs that I provided, and it looked like the photograph. So it was scored fine.
Cool. I think we've actually got to the bottom of the questions a little bit earlier than we were planned to do. So I think we're kind of nearly there, guys. I think that's us. I think that's all the questions in. So thank you very much to our panel this evening, this afternoon, this morning, wherever you are in the world. And as Jeff in Australia pointed out, it's great to be able to enjoy such an international hobby at the moment. I really appreciate you guys taking part today, and I really appreciate everybody from around the world actually coming in to ask questions. There are people that, without this, I don't think these guys would have the opportunity to come and ask questions of Chuck and Pete in Texas, John somewhere in New England, and New York, but they probably wave Patriots flags in that part of New York. I don't know, maybe not. And we have Bruce there in Arizona. So thank you very much, guys, for joining our panel. Hopefully we'll get you back on at a future Ask the MMR. And
thank you, Gordy.
Wrap it up. No, thank you, guys.
Thank you, Gordy.
Thank you for putting this together.
Oh, you're welcome. All right, everyone. So NMRAx is back on September the 26th, 2020, with another 12-hour event, and it's going to run from 11 a.m. Eastern to 11 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Central to 10 p.m. Central. People, you can work out your own local time zones. There is a video on YouTube available if you Google time zones, explain to me time zones. There's a nice YouTube video that talks about the fact that the Earth is a round sphere and it moves around the sun and all that kind of great stuff. So you can go and work out your own local time zone. I apologise for anyone if there was any confusions here with time zones. For this event, Facebook can't work out time zones, but we kind of managed to fix it in the end. But anyway, thank you, everybody. We'll transition this across, and we'll kill the stream in the next couple of minutes. So thank you, everyone. Keep watching.